for example, right, if you're like, I don't know, in a fascist society, I don't know.
Here we go.
Today, we don't talk about it though. You will try to have like more fascist beliefs, like, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to act, and this is how you're supposed to do, and that basically restricts you from doing any change for yourself and like the betterment of yourself, kind of.
You ever drink something that's so hot, it burns you, but you try to hold it together?
Yeah.
That's where I am right now. That's some hot tea right there. Eyes are all watering anyway. Keep it together, Scam, on your own video. This is for the rest of the, this is for eternity. I'm struggling with that statement of too much freedom. Because we'll oftentimes say like, I've got too much freedom. I wonder if it's too much freedom or if it's too little self-control. In other words, we might say, I've got too much freedom for my particular level of self-control. Do you follow? Because, like, for example, I don't know. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's an atheist, and he was we were both talking to a friend of ours who's a Christian, and the guy was saying, well, if you're an atheist, like, what stops you from just like raping and murdering as much as you want? And I said, he already does. And I was like, what? I go, dude, this guy rapes and murders as much as he wants. Which is to say, not at all. He doesn't want to rape and murder. In other words, it doesn't have to be that, you know, the only thing that stops you from doing it is a fear of consequences. What can also stop you from doing it is just it's in your nature not to want to do those terrible things. You follow? Or it's not within your reason. Even if it's within your nature, it can still not be within your reason. You can still develop empathy and sympathy and a sense of a moral compass, if that makes sense. And so, how much freedom do you have to have? I guess it depends. So how much freedom is too much freedom? I'm wondering if it just depends on the person. Because, like, for example, some people, like, if I put out like a table and have all the drugs in the world on it, some of you will overdose before you get through, 10% of the table. Some of you, I'll put that same table out there, and you'll walk away, and you'll go eat McDonald's or something. In other words, it isn't so much that you have too much freedom. Maybe what you have is too little self-control. Maybe what you have is too little direction, too little reason. So maybe the thing that we should be working on is that. In other words, not taking away your freedom, but developing your sense of self-control. Because towards developing that sense of self-control, it goes back to this thing in the blue box. What's the long-term thing that you really, really are after? Not the short-term wants that you have. This is like the instant gratification stuff. But the stuff that's long-term that you're actually pursuing, and what can lead you to that. Now, you might say, well, I've got too much freedom, so now I'm pursuing this. So if I take away your freedom, are you really learning to pursue this, the long-term goal? Or are you just being shoved into that long-term goal? So now let's say that you get there. Have you learned how to get that on your own? No. You've only learned how to be pushed into that. And like you pointed out in this class, I don't stand above you. Come on, get your work done. Come on, you can do this. Put the phone away. Stop it. Oh my God. I wonder how much, God, can you imagine how much time I would spend having to walk around telling people to get off their phone, take out their AirPods, stop talking to people, get your work done, stop working on other things. You're running around like that. I don't know why a lot of teachers put themselves in the position of being highly paid babysitters. I don't know, because I don't know that it actually gets you anywhere. Especially now, I can imagine maybe if you're dealing with like toddlers or 8-year-olds or something like that. But by the time where you're all's age, it's time to really let you kind of find out who you are. It's like you've heard before about senioritis. You ever heard about this before? Senioritis is the idea that seniors, especially by the time they get to their second semester, are just checked out and they're just done with it. And it's like they stop doing homework as much, they start ditching more, they have trouble getting meeting deadlines because it's just like, oh, I'm just tired of it. And we accept this as though it's a real thing. It's not a real thing. What it is that by the time you get to the end of your senior year, teachers start to more hands-off. The administration is more hands-off, except for the former attendance coordinator. But by and large, they're more hands-off. And what that means is that you have the opportunity to become who you are, or to demonstrate who you are, when people aren't forcing you and guiding you. And I would bet that you're going to find the person who you are when you're in that second semester as a senior, if I check back with you in your mid-20s, you're probably largely that same person. Because that's when you're being allowed to express who you really are. Like for example, with regards to this class, does it help if I stand above you and tell you, come on, get your stuff done, do this, do that? If it worked, if that worked, you wouldn't need me to do it. Because you've got 5 other teachers who are doing it. You've got over a decade of teachers behind you who are doing it. So that means that by the time you get to the one class, you should be doing it, right? By nature. But as soon as that one teacher doesn't force you to do it, and then you do something completely different, well, that should tell you something about who you really are. And that shouldn't surprise any of us. Because how many people actually do tap into these things, these long-term goals that they talk about? Well, I just saw a great meme someone sent me. It said something like, students with a 1.5 talk about no cap. Yeah, no gown either. The funny thing is that they will get a cap and gown, and then they'll get a diploma, but what have they really learned? What we learned is that we'll give you a diploma just for showing up and breathing. And that's bad for you. And too often we get so caught up like, oh, teachers get mad if we don't do their work. Dude, you saved me grading. You're one less person in the world I have to compete with. I mean, if your performance is trash, it's one less person I have to compete with. It bothers me at a human level for you as a person, because you're never going to be fulfilled in life unless you achieve some of these. You won't achieve all of them. Nobody does. But if you can't achieve some of these things, and if you don't have the skill set to achieve some of these things, that sucks. I mean, like, gosh, I ran into a former student yesterday. I have no recollection of who this person was. And she said that she's 25, and she said she had me 7 years ago. Talked to her for a minute, couldn't place the name, and she said, oh yeah, I didn't really say anything, I just kind of sat at the back of the room. I go, but you passed. She's like, oh, barely, D-. I'm like, oh. And she's like, I think you just gave it to me because I was close to an F. I go, I have no idea, I have no recollection. And I asked her, how's life turning out for you? Just generally speaking. And she took the opportunity to complain to me for 10 minutes about how life is just kicking the shit out of her. And there was nothing in there that was like, I mentioned that to a friend of mine, he was like, oh, how'd you feel about that? I said, I feel terrible about that, man. Especially if it's true that she earned an F and I gave her a D-. I don't do that kind of stuff. I never do that. If you get a 59% in my class as a senior, you get an F. Because I give so many opportunities to raise that grade. I don't give any pity passing grades to seniors. But if that did happen, I would feel terrible about it, because then that means I reinforced something in this person, which was that a D- was good enough to get by. But a D- in life is not going to get you these things that you want, the ultimate things. And so I feel terrible about it, because then that means that it was reinforced to her that stuff was just going to be given to you. And here was a real life person, real flesh and blood, standing in front of me with deeply melancholy eyes, telling me about how terribly life is turning out for her. And she's only 25. She has a long way to go, hopefully. And that means that she has a lot of opportunity to turn it around. And I said something to her about that. I said, well, dude, you're only 25. And she's like, yeah, but I feel like it's getting too late to do anything about it. It's like, shit. It's not. It really isn't. But if she feels like it is, then it is. If she feels like it's not, then it's not. In other words, whether you feel like you're going to be successful or not is true. Yes. Are you going to fail or are you going to succeed? Yes. Yeah. In other words, whatever it is you think. If you think you can, if you think you can't, you're probably right, whichever way it is. If we convince ourselves of these things. But we have to have a mindset and a skill set that can help us to achieve these things. We can't just hope and pray, because lots of people are. And so it's about giving up these things in the short term, but we have to be this long-term minded. But this is really hard for us, especially when stuff is right in front of us. And let's face it, everything is right in front of you. And everything's on the screen that's right in front of you. But that's not good in the long term. And what's unfortunate is that I don't think I'm telling you anything that you don't already know. But we go rushing headlong anyway into the things that we know are bad for us. That's the real mystery of human nature. Why is it that we pursue those things that are so bad for us. And even if things are going well for us, it's almost like we still have to pursue the things that are going to be bad for us. So I'm thinking of the student I had last year. I don't want to say his name. I know some of you know who he is, so I don't want to say his name. But I haven't seen the guy in a while. He said that the last time he came into my room, I kicked him out. I have no recollection of that. I don't ever remember that happening. Does it sound like something I would do? Yes. Yeah, if he came in and he interrupted something, and if he was being a clown, because he was a clown, then absolutely, I'd have kicked him out if he was interrupting something important. Generally speaking, I wouldn't do that. If he was interrupting something important and being a jerk about it, absolutely. And he's the kind of person who actually would do that. I ran into him earlier this year and said hi to him, and he looked at me like he said hi to me, but like he was waiting for something terrible to happen. Now I understand why. I guess I kicked him out before that. And then anyway, he came by, and if you look at this person, his face, he's a completely different person than he was a year ago. He's a completely different person. I mentioned him to another teacher, and he said, yeah, I saw him. He looks different, doesn't he? I go, right? Completely different person. And he came in, and essentially he came in talking about this stuff here. About this stuff here. And he was talking about how most of his life so far, he's only an 11th grader, man. He said that in his life so far, he's looked at it, and he realizes that these are the things that have been interrupting him from doing the things he wants to do. Even in terms of like doing clubs and playing sports and things like that, pursuing these. And he came in, and he was talking to me about long-term goal planning, and he's using these proper terms. This guy's been researching and reading a lot recently. And there's just something about this dude. I remember him that I talked to him a number of times and just said, you're on this precipice. You're the kind of a person who your personality is a big personality, and I said people will be influenced by you one way or the other. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Do you want to influence people for the better, or do you want to influence people for the worse? It really is going to be on you. I said you're going to influence people either way. You have a choice about that. That's your luck in life. And this guy's talking about and he was talking to me about he got some money together from working several jobs, because he said that he started putting away those other things that were distracting him from his goals in life, and he started working several jobs, just wherever he could pick up, hustling. And he's put together some money, and he wants to start investing now. And so he's looking at how to do all of that. This is a completely different person, even in terms of like the kinds of things he laughs about, the way he carries himself, everything. Something dramatic happened to this person, and I know what it is. He told me what it was, but it took something dramatic to happen to this person. And he's wise enough that it wasn't even in his own life. He experienced something through somebody else's life. And he looked at himself and said, that's where I'm headed, because I'm pursuing this and not this. And then he said that one day he looked around in his classroom, which is similar to what happened to me. I looked around my neighborhood, and he realized how many people were pursuing these things, and he saw the opportunity. He said, I have to compete with people whose faces are stuck in their phones all day, people who are not participating, people who are not learning. He's like, if I just start to focus and get better and better every day, I'm going to be way ahead of everybody else. That gives me a great opportunity. He's like, I feel like I'm losing so much of my opportunities. I'm like, God damn, dude. 16, I couldn't have said it better myself. Wisdom. And it's not bitching anybody out. It's recognizing the reality of the situation. As I've said before, you guys are capable of. You have no idea. You have no idea what you're capable of. And I really mean that. You have no idea what you could possibly accomplish. And you will say it, but man, you're not limited by anything except for yourself. You might think you're limited by things, but whatever you're limited by, you have gobs of something else. Maybe you don't have a bunch of money, but do you have a hard work ethic? That you can use that to go get money. Because money is a mathematical problem. You find out how much money you want, figure that out first, figure out your sum first, then figure out, then you find a job, any job, doesn't matter. Then you figure out how much you're getting paid an hour, and then do the math. How much of this, how many hours do I have to work to get this sum of money? And then, and by sum of money, I'm not talking about how much money you want in your life, I'm talking about how much money you think you need to get you to something else that you want. And then you treat money as a resource, not as an object itself, but as a resource to get you the other things in life that you want. You know? And once you figure stuff like that out, man, there's almost nothing that can stop you. And if you look around in the world and you see that most of your peers are not thinking this way, understand that when you look around the room, that's part of your competition. And that's something that, I say this because I love you, not to be popular, but you look around most of your classrooms, you're going to realize that most of the people around you are not competition. Most of the people are not doing those things. If you're doing that, most people around you are not going to be doing those things. And then you tell me, when you walk into a job interview, imagine if everybody in the room watching that same interview, what is it about you that can stand out? And you should be able to eliminate over half of the class right off the bat. And then figure out what it is about the other ones that would make them so strong. And then, I don't know, maybe that should become your peer group. Maybe that should become the people you interact with. Because iron sharpens iron. You know? Unfortunately, that would mean having to shed away the old things. Get rid of the old friends, get rid of the old behaviors. And that's probably the hardest part of all of it. It's the hardest part of all of it. You know, because of course, what are your old friends going to say about you? What are people going to say about you? How are they going to treat you? Yeah, that's all really hard, man, but that's all working towards this. You know? Because losing your friends, is that bad? That suffering? Say it, dude, you're wearing the shirt.
God. Life is suffering, guys.
That's right. Life is suffering. You don't get to choose not to suffer. You get to choose what you're going to suffer for. There's suffering that's here. There's suffering that's here. But you get to choose what you're going to suffer for. But I'm sorry to dump it all on you. And I hope you understand I'm not saying this out of anything except for love. I know that this is going to piss a lot of you off and this is going to make me really unpopular, man. But I'm telling you this because you should know it. Because...
Is it you don't know what you don't know?
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But now you can never say you didn't know.
All right, extra credit, give me that.
What's that?
Extra credit, hand it over.
Hand it over. There's all the extra credit you need. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?